Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. We've got people popping in here, so we'll just chat casually for another minute or two. I am coming to you from beautiful, well, the outskirts of Vancouver, British Columbia, as opposed to the outskirts of Vancouver, Washington. And Bruce, I'll ask you in a second, but for me, it is snowing like the devil outside right now. What's happening in your Vancouver?
In the real Vancouver, it's partly sunny with just rain,
Yeah.
Partly sunny with rain.
like Florida.
Yeah.
This is the massive winter of West Michigan.
Oh,
It's supposed to hit 60 this week. So thanks, global warming.
yeah. All right, so let's get rolling here. Sudar has worked tirelessly for a couple of weeks to put together a video on the history of OpenNTF that we want to start with. The video itself is going to be laggy. I am going to paste in the chat right now the link to it. So it's unlisted on YouTube because, of course, we use the original Note Sauce logo, which we were politely asked to no longer use. So we'll decide whether we actually make this public or not. But in the meantime, I'm going to share this for us to enjoy while we're all sitting together. But then you've got the link to check it out later as well. Here we go.
Everything you are going to see today is free and open source. Ooh, 100%.
Wait a second. Am I sharing? I'm not
You're
sharing.
not.
No, you're not.
Well, that would be a problem.
Yeah, I had your audio, but no video.
Okay. Let's start that again. Here we go.
Everything you are going to see today is free and open source. Ooh, 100%.
OpenNTF was started by another individual and myself. The other individual had the initial idea about starting an open source community for the IBM Lotus world. I was the one who said, I have a server, let's do it. Nathan made a post soliciting the idea for an open source community for Notes and Domino, and a whole bunch of developers from around the world said, yeah, Nathan, great idea. They offered up some resources, and notesoss.org was born. Why did we change the name? Well, can you say lawyer? And can you say patent infringement? Our mission is to provide a framework for the community to develop open source applications for IBM, Lotus Notes, and Domino, which can be freely distributed.
So that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you want to build your own applications.
I think OpenNTF is really a critical part of the ecosystem to get application developers to be able to learn about building index pages for the Notes client, for the browser, for mobile devices.
We can announce this first development contest on OpenNTF. Today we are announcing a new OpenNTF project called Text Snippets. Recently we launched a new community site called collaborationtoday.info.
OpenNTF, open source solutions can save you time, money, and your hair.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Sudar for putting that together.
Cool. That was awesome.
Okay, Howard, over to you.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say welcome, everybody. Looks like we had a great turnout here. Lots of people who were around at the very beginning. And I'd like to thank Graham for pulling this all together. He's done a great job of building the agenda and getting all you people to attend, and as well as the rest of the board for helping out and help everyone enjoys the next hour and a half. Graham, again, thanks.
Okay, so we got some special guests and some presentations and some other highlights, and we're going to hear from a lot of people that have been involved in the community for a long time. So let's jump into it. We're going to, at the end, we'll basically have a free-for-all, and everybody can share some stories about maybe something from OpenNTF that helped them in their work life. So quick thank you to our sponsors, as we do for every webinar. HCL is supporting OpenNTF, and we thank them for their contribution. And of course, Pramanik has invested a lot of time and resources in supporting OpenNTF over the years, and also a thank you to them. And of course, now that we're celebrating 20 years, there have been previous sponsors and supporters of all kinds, and we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of them, because of course we wouldn't be here today unless there were people in the early days who were giving their resources as well. So thank you to everyone. Wanted to say a quick thank you. This was the scroll that was in the video. Wanted to just call out a few names on here, but these are all people who have been involved in some way, shape, or form, and we pulled this together from the archives in the documentation database for the history of OpenNTF. So I will apologize right now if we've missed somebody, because there's some gaps in the documentation. But we did our best to find everybody who was ever a board member, volunteer, or otherwise involved in the inner workings of OpenNTF. And certainly Nathan and Bruce, as our co-founders, we want to call both of them out. And thank you very much, Bruce, for joining us today. Vince is joining us. I think he said he was going to join us today. So, and I know those are the first four guys who really got things rolling. And then we've combined all the rest of the names. I also want to call out Christian, who's just ended his tenure as chairman, but has shepherded OpenNTF along for the last 8 years, and everybody else. So thank you to everybody that's volunteered to OpenNTF. And with that, I will turn it over to a man that everybody knows and has a lot to share with us. So Bruce, I'm going to give you the mic. Please take it away.
Wow. I can't believe 20 years later, here we are, right? Who would have thought? And as you can tell, I didn't prepare anything for today's talk. But OpenNTF filled a gap in my life 20 years ago, right? I had a job that I didn't like. I had some personal issues going on. I had a daughter who had a brain tumor. It was a rough time. So this came along, Nathan's post 20 years ago today, floating this idea about the an open source community, of course, in Nathan style, first like apologizing if he pissed anybody off. I had a server because I was managing IT at Sharp Microelectronics of the Americas, and let it be known that Sharp never knew that server was in their computer room. All right, just so you know. All right, because it was my computer room, and I had an extra T1 line lying around with a router and a switch, and boom, we were on the internet, and we had our little website. And back in the early days, we didn't pretty much have anything web access. I thought, maybe I'm getting old here, but I remember, I think it was David Gross or somebody developing a cross certification system or something where you'd send us your safe ID and we cross certify it, and then you'd gain notes access to note sauce or OpenNTF, whatever it was. And maybe I'm wrong, but it also gave me the opportunity to travel the world, meet all of you, most of you. And then when Julian and I launched Taking Notes, Julian had one of my favorite OpenNTF projects next to OpenNTF Mail, OpenLog, right? That was one of my favorite applications. And we were able to succeed as Taking Notes due to the success of all things OpenNTF. So I want to just thank Julian for his inspiring code, and of course the podcast. Yeah, and then the whole journey, the ups and downs, with IBM. There were never any ups and downs in the community. It was something the community really needed. We didn't have GitHub back then, so it pulled this global community of developers, administrators, and users together. I think in a way that not many other software products, companies, whatever, did at the time. And if you go back and I noticed on the Twitter account that the OpenNTF OpenNTF shared, some of the registration and download statistics, and it was crazy, in those first couple of years, because we all saw the need and had the need to share, all the wonderful software that, you all developed and you all worked on and you deployed within your organizations, right? And then, OpenNTF morphed like any other organization. People came and went. I had left for a while. I believe Vince and other people, pushed, and John, and they formed an alliance. IBM was offering up some support. If I remember correctly, again, I should have done a better job here. But they offered up Peter as the IP manager, and then we formed. I forgot whether it was a corporation or an LLC or something. But that's when things started getting a little bit more serious, and the organization matured even more. And it's still being run that way today since 2009. So again, I'm all over the place because it's early here and I'm only on my second cup of coffee. But it was, in my life, it was one of the, top, one of the top things I've done in my career as a human. And I want to just thank everyone for being part of it and for having me here today. So
I think Bruce, we all owe you a big, huge thank you for getting the ball rolling along with Nathan and everybody else in the early days. But it needs somebody to blaze a trail, and you were one of the people involved that early. So from all of us, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Nicholas. Nicholas joined and represents IBM. Nicholas, take it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me here. And man, how cool would it be if we could all meet in person now, right? I mean, that would be such a fun event. But anyway, we will try our best here online. So yeah, I want to tell you a couple of stories how I got engaged in OpenNTF. And that was around 2008. And before that, I had worked as an architect on IBM Lotus Notes for composite applications. And we had worked 3 years on this new really big deliverable. And we figured and we discovered very soon that there was almost nobody who wanted to use that functionality. And for me, that was a huge disappointment after I spent so much time, working on this, right? So I was thinking about what was the reason for this huge failure. And I think the main reason was that we didn't interact enough with our community, with you guys, right? And I really wanted to change that. So I suggested at the time to my executives that it really would make sense to have a full-time, for the first time, a full-time developer advocate who could work with the community. And fortunately, I was able to work in this role for the next 6 years. And this was, something very special for me, a time that I will clearly never forget because I enjoyed it so much, working with all of you, working on these great projects, working on open source. was something very special for me. Now, I remember when I started at 2008, OpenNTF had been around for quite some time, but honestly, it also had seen better times. So at that time, there wasn't too much progress. And I think it was a good match in terms of timing that we as IBM decided that we really want to, as we called it internally, reinvigorate the Notes Domino app dev community, right? And it was clearly not only myself, right? So I see a lot of names here, right? Phil is on, Pete is on, Peter Tanner, who else? Who did I forgot? Anyway, so many other IBMers, a huge push for OpenNTF. The story that I would like to share, I mean, it might not be that important anymore because it's so long ago, but when we started, we had to do a lot of process work to make OpenNTF more professional, right? So that we as IBM could participate. So for example, we came up with this, as Bruce just said, with this OpenNTF Alliance, a group of many different companies. We came up with this IP model, etc. And that was necessary for us as IBM to really engage. And we also had to do a lot of internal works, for example, so that we could open source new deliverables very easily with a lightweight IP process. Then all of these things took some time. And I remember that at the beginning, around 2009, there were a couple, let's put it this way, suboptimal block entries from people in the community, who basically said, oh, now IBM came in and now it's all going slower and, IBM screwed it up again. And I can tell you, these discussions have caused so much attention internally up to the highest executive levels. Everyone was talking about it. You can't believe how much impact you as a community had on IBM and probably now on HCL, I don't know. But, your voices are really, really important. We took that feedback seriously. For example, we changed a couple of things, right? The IP model we changed slightly. And I really started to focus more on code. And content, right? So we delivered a new website, a new homepage. We, created webinars. I created my own open source projects like XPages mobile controls and so forth, right? And we managed to deliver so many contributions, new projects. You all know the XPages extension library and many other widgets and little tools here and there. And I think that really made the difference, right? So Steve Castledine and I, right, we worked in this very beginning of this 2008 reinvigorated OpenNTF, as I would call it, very closely together. And then with Bruce, I worked with Bruce on a daily basis, I think for 3.5 years. I never understood when this guy actually slept, right? Because he was always there and we talked for hours. And we made a difference by delivering and focusing on content, right? We had a new homepage with very fresh content, basically on a daily basis, whether those were blogs or webinars, or then later the development contests and all of these things. And again, I can only repeat myself. It has been so much fun to work with the community, to work on these new projects like XSnippets, Collaboration Today, XPages Info, all of these things. And again, many people are on here, right? Cedar and Per, and who else? I mean, again, I forget a couple of things, a couple of people. But this was really something very special. And, we actually delivered, cool new things for everyone, right? And that's what I appreciated most, the collaboration with everyone in the board of directors, in the technical committee, on these side projects. And again, Bruce, I can only repeat myself, right? Bruce has been incredible. I've learned so much from him in terms of how you can engage communities, how you can moderate, how you can focus on really good things and pixel perfect websites, and so forth and so forth. So this was, a huge pleasure for me to work on this. And I think I will talk a little bit later about the XPages contests, right? Or should I do it now?
No,
Okay,
we've got some slides later that we'll come to.
Okay.
Thank you, Nicholas. Next up is Justin Hill. Justin's with Prominic and was one of the very early members of the board. Justin, take it away.
Okay, great. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right, good. Well, first, it's just great to hear everybody's voice. I mean, Nicholas, Bruce, it's been far too long since I've spoken to you guys. Per, it's great to see you on. Jesse, everybody, thank you for being here, and thank you for all the past contributions. First, I want to give credit to Doug Robinson. I mean, at Prominic, he's really the one who has, for many years, been carrying the torch at OpenNTF. Certainly, John and I do our part to support things, but Doug is really the main torchbearer here. And I think really the recollections I have are probably a lot more squishy feely. Like I was not as nearly as involved with any of the actual forward progress that was critical to the organization as the tentpole folks at that time, like Bruce and Nicholas and Nathan and Christian and Per and really everybody else. I feel like did a lot more work than I did, but we were just thrilled to see the community progress. And I feel like for us, it was a great opportunity to be involved early on with trying to provide something the community needed, trying to let the customers know that there was an active and vibrant open source community. I think that's benefited everybody in the ecosystem. And but my earliest memories really were, again, very soft and squishy. It was like mainly me and Bruce going for ice cream after hanging out at Lotusphere. That's sort of the thing that's indelibly stuck in my mind, are these like chats with Bruce about life and just kind of non OpenNTF stuff really. So I would say the professional relationships that formed and the time that I got to spend with people, especially at Lotusphere, because of our involvement in this. I mean, I think that I probably wouldn't have gotten to know a lot of you, without getting involved in OpenNTF. And to me, I think that's been, the most by far important thing than OpenNTF itself to me personally. From a technical standpoint, obviously there's lots of things to rave about, and I do recall fondly and really excitedly the moment in which IBM decided that the XPages extension library was going to be part of the core product. And I think from an involvement in the product perspective, that professionally for me was just amazing. Obviously, it's hard also to think about OpenNTF without thinking about Nathan. I remember so many calls on the board where Nathan was just kind of sort of this shining vision of what was going to happen, whether it was happening because it was a group decision or just his sheer force of will. I look really fondly back at the passion and drive that he had to move the organization forward and the technology stack forward. I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I had with Nathan about what he was trying to achieve with his brilliant graph library, where I still left at the end of it going, what? I feel like I need to go back to college just to understand what he just explained to me was going to be overlaid on top of the NSF layer. So, and the reality is that that OpenNTF continues to march on with really great people. I mean, Jesse, you've done amazing things with the on-disk project and so many other tools. And and Graham is obviously an incredible organizer and helping technically as well. So I still feel very confident about OpenNTF in the future, and we want to participate however we can. And hopefully, I think we should have more things like this. I mean, I just can't tell you how refreshing it is to see everybody on here. So thank you very much. And Christian, I'd love to hear what your memories are next.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thanks a lot. Yes, what are my memories? And the first thing I have to say, it was a huge honor, a great honor to take over OpenNTF from Bruce, but you have to be also clear at this point, these booths were very, very big. And it was not the easiest thing to do, especially at this time. Some troubles were ahead of us, and this tight relationship that we had with Nicholas was also a little bit in a fragile state. So yes, but my memories about OpenNTF are not that related to the troubles that we had or to the storms that we are in the middle of, or no, my memories are, and I can share this as an example, related to special situations and events. And one of these special events was when I was in Dublin together with Martin, Eamon, and Patrick in the Confession pub, and we had this very nice evening after a very special day at the IBM lab where we have worked on a Maven plugin to utilize the Domino designer to build automatically NSF databases, and we were in this pub, and they drank beer as they used to do as Irish people, and I was still with my mineral water because of my legs. But that was such a special moment, and there was such good music, and the vibes were good, and they talk about their Irish culture and how the blood is now boiling because of the song the guy in the bar has sung. And as I said, that's one of the examples. For me, OpenNTF, it was always meeting people, and the conversation or the starting point of conversation could be software that we have shared together, that we have worked together. But at the end of the day, it was always about the people, bringing these brilliant people together. And one of the things I'm very thankful that I have taken on these boots from Bruce was it has opened so many doors to so many great people that I admire, and that I've learned so much. When I think that there was a reason to talk with Phil and get in touch with Phil, because I'm the chairman, and that has helped me to get in contact and learn what he can provide to me from the educational point, from the personal point. And then we had this nice relationship, this friendship, or also the friendship to Nicholas and to so many other community members. That was something very great and very special, beside all the troubles and beside all the storm that we were in a certain time. And I hope, Graham, to give it also back to you, that you will see again the rise of OpenNTF, and I think OpenNTF is in a real good shape for that. And I hope that HCL will be listening carefully in the future what the community is saying. So to close this, for me, people and the software, because I'm a developer, I love software, I love to develop, to be honest. But the people in this community and all the memories that I have, or when we think about the beer bus, Oliver, you remember the beer bus? That was a cool time. All this, that will remain beside and longer than our software that we have built.
Did Oliver break the beer bus?
Okay,
No.
Oliver, you gotta fill us in. Come on, Oliver, jump in.
Yeah, actually, no, I did not break the beer bus. If I remember correctly, Nathan did break the beer bus. Not in the way of breaking it literally, but we had to take a slightly detour in the Netherlands. We were on our tour from Bremen, from the ICSUG conference that We4IT started, and we were on the way to Ghent to engage with Theo. And it was a 7-hour ride with that luxury bus, event bus, double-decker and stuff, and bar in the back and music and whatnot. And the problem was we were equipped very well with beer, with vodka, and all kinds of nice beverages during the 7-hour ride, but no tequila. And Nathan was a tequila guy, and he complained from the start, where is the tequila? And we had to wait until we made our first break in the Netherlands at Domino's Pizza, of course, at Domino's. It must have been Domino's. And after that break, we, as I said, we took a slight detour with half an hour or something and we approached a small supermarket in a rural area of the Netherlands. I have no idea where it was. And Nathan and I forgot who the other guy was, entered the supermarket, the only store that was open at the time, because it was a Saturday afternoon, late afternoon, and they came back with, well-equipped, some bottles of tequila, and we were able to continue our ride. And that's what I remember as a special occasion on this trip. So this was very fun. No, I didn't break the beer bus. I was just a passenger.
Yeah, but you hear it. That's the stories that will remain, and that's the stories that we have in this community, and that makes it so special. Beside the fact that we have all together built astonished software and deliver things to Domino that now nobody else could imagine that we can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Devin, you're up next. The community. We're all passionate about the community, and we've all made contributions in our own way. And I don't mean to single out Nathan and Tim, but of course they're no longer with us. So I wanted to ask a couple of people just to speak on their behalf and share their thoughts about these guys' passion for our community. So Devin, go ahead.
Cool, thanks. Before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about OpenNTF quickly, and then I'll talk about Nathan. And Nicholas, important. All stories are important. You might think that your story wasn't that big of a deal, but it's a big deal, man. All of these stories, even the smallest ones, are extremely important. So as far as OpenNTF itself goes, I've been involved on the periphery, meaning I've never been on the board, I've never served, I've never done any of the hard work. I've simply contributed and consumed and listened to people and occasionally bitched. But one of the things about OpenNTF, and I'm going to say this is the OpenNTF way, is it always seems to be everything is by the seat of your pants. The people who are doing the hard work, Bruce and Vince and Oliver and all of you, you guys get shit done. So basically the community since the beginning has been able to trust that OpenNTF would be there and that stuff would be done successfully. And I think that's a major thing. And whether it was, craziness or fights at the end of the night or, dealing with legal and IT and IP stuff, you guys just always came through. And I, as a member of the community, am very grateful for that. So anyway, I met Nathan back around 1997, 1998 through NotesNet, and we would argue a lot about code. He would say something, and I'd be like, "You're an idiot," and he would come back at me and, "No, you're a moron." But it was never mean. But we would kind of go back and forth, and through that same realm, that's where I ended up meeting Bruce and Rocky Oliver. So and Stan Rogers. So you guys were my first 4 friends in the community. I didn't get out much back then. I didn't get to Lotus Sphere until fairly later on, 1999, I think is when I finally got there. And finally got to start meeting people. And so one of the really impacts that I noticed, yes, it is Italian, and it's fragile. One of this will go as an example to explain one of the things about Nathan that I think was amazing. And a lot of people might say that he was arrogant. He had a bit of a reputation as being arrogant, but I don't really think that was born out of disdain for others. He didn't put up with failures. He didn't put up failures on a personal level, like a human. He wouldn't understand that, but a failure in a process or a failure in code or a failure in those type of things, he was quick to be impatient with. One of the things he used to say was his goal was to take away people's pain. And he tried to do that with software, which I think was awesome. Anyway, I met him back then and kind of got to be friends and stuff like that. And then this will kind of explain how cool I think he was I ended up getting laid off in 2007. And I'd been out of work for a couple of months, and I got a phone call from a guy named Scott Holden. And Scott was at that time a manager for Lotus 911. And Scott called me and he said, "Hey, listen, if you're interested, I've got a job for you, but I don't know anything about you other than Nathan told me I was supposed to hire you." And I was like, okay. And he said, I have some contract work for you, and I need you to go out to another state and go there and meet at a customer site. And we've got one of our employees will be there. And so he'll be able to check you out and make sure you know what you're doing. But, you know, because I don't know anything about you other than Nathan said hire you. And so I got on a plane and I flew out to that state, and I ended up at that customer site. And that's where I got to meet Tim Tripconi. And it was kind of a cool deal. And that's how I ended up going to work for Lotus 911 with some of the greatest developers I've ever met. And but the thing that was cool about that is Nathan and I had never worked together. Up until that point, we had only argued code. We had occasionally had a beer at events. And I considered him as a friend of mine, but I didn't realize that he considered me, I guess, air quote, worthy, until he basically said, "Scott hired Evan." And it was a big deal. And it was a big event for me. He, as far as his contributions to OpenNTF went, you know, Bruce stated it, you know, it was his idea, and he and Bruce got together. And the truth is, if the two of those guys, if Bruce and Nathan had not come together at that point in time and put OpenNTF together, and the OpenNTF mail template or the mail experience and some of the other projects that were out there, I think if that had not happened, I honestly don't think the community would have prevailed in the strength that it did. So they were really, really important and impressive in their impacts and their contributions. One of the things that we were required to do once we all left Lotus 911 and GBS and Nathan and Peter and the others got Red Pill going, is one of our requirements at Red Pill was that we contribute to OpenNTF. That was part of your job description, is you must contribute code to OpenNTF, which I think was a cool requirement, and that was, you know, from Nathan. So I feel like I'm starting to ramble on and babble a little bit. I think I've said my piece about his contributions. And you don't drink and code, yes, that's over. And so I'm going to stop babbling and let Paul talk a little bit about Tim.
Thank you, Devin. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks. Well, obviously, Tim also is no longer with us, and he contributed a number of projects. He was very heavily involved, as was Nathan, in OpenNTF Domino API. And also, he, like Nathan, he had that deep knowledge of X pages, which is what has really progressed a number of us from being good Domino developers to deeply knowledgeable Java developers as a result. It's not just OpenNTF. OpenNTF is one part of the community. There's other parts as well. And it wasn't right for OpenNTF to do everything. Notes in 9 was another big part of the community in those early X Pages days. And thanks to David Leedy for all of his work on that. Absolutely. And Tim was a regular contributor there. And I think that a lot of those videos, a lot of his projects enabled a lot of developers to contribute some of the stuff that they've subsequently contributed. So it's not just about what they contributed back in terms of actual code. It's about how they enabled others to contribute as well. But I'd also just like to say that yes, we've lost those not just from the community, but from our whole lives. But there are also a lot of other people from the community that we've lost along the way who have contributed a lot. And I think they've all made us richer as a result. They've all allowed us to build on their work. And I remember my first blog post ever back in probably 2010 was talking about standing on the shoulders of giants. And when you think of names like René Winkelmeyer, Christian, David, Declan Lynch, Matt White, Mark Lusink, Steve Castledine, Cameron Gregor, Frank van der Linden, all of the X Pages team, Philippe, these have all at some point in our time been gods for us, and to be able to contribute as well has been we're just carrying on that legacy. And it's not just on the in terms of the contributors, it's also in terms of the board members. I remember Peter Tanner's picture has just come up. His work on IP, I think we were all as a board terrified of how we would cope without him. But Jesse's done a wonderful job there, and all of the other board members that have gone before us. We have a duty to continue that legacy, and hopefully we can continue to do so for many more years to come.
Very well said, Paul. Thank you. Okay, let's take a trip down memory lane. I am going to stop sharing here and give control over to Mr. Sudar Beshamez. And
yeah, I'm going to learn how to pronounce.
Take it away.
Oh, nice, Mike Sudar.
Yeah,
I am Sudar.
I am Sudar. Okay, let's try this. And it's difficult
By the way,
to share.
Sorry, Sudar, just before you start.
Yeah.
The day that I met Sudar, did you win a contest? And that's why you came to Lotusphere?
No, that was my first Lotusphere. And let me tell you this, while Bruce is here, that was my first Lotusphere, and I went to straightly to Bruce on that day.
Yeah,
and because Bruce was the only one I know in the Lotusphere, and you were sitting with Bruce and Gail, and we first met there. And you are probably the second person I have met in Lotusphere in person.
That's just what I was going to say. It was because of Bruce that you and I met. So thanks.
Yeah.
One more reason.
And on that day, I specifically remember that Bruce has introduced at least 250 people on that specific night. I remember that. And the number is not exaggeration.
I couldn't get rid of you.
Yeah. You tried a lot.
I do have the picture that we took outside of Kimonos.
Yeah. I still have the picture as well. Those were the good days. Anyway, guys, Bruce also was my first co-speaker and did the IBM Connect 2013, which I spoke about dots, and I have been a dots expert just to make a great video for Notes in 9. So we were talking about David Leedy as well. So anyway, let's talk about projects. Projects are projects. OpenNTF is just, I'm mostly about projects, and we'd like to highlight a few projects, but I will take this part without number crunching games, just using a couple of numbers here. These are impressive, I guess, but I'm not sure how they are representing well how cool it is. I mean, there has been 560 project chefs so far in OpenNTF, creating 966 projects. We counted, and we don't count downloads anymore because really they are huge. But this means nearly 3,000 releases pushed into the OpenNTF repository. And if not enough, there are also snippets, and sometimes, you know, contributions are not big enough to be a project, and they might now not have a life cycle. So 456 snippets by 78 contributors, and I would point every and each of these projects one by one because they are really great, but instead I will just bring this, and these are, I think we should have a big virtual applause for all these peoples. These are project contributors and snippet contributors all in one screen, and if you are one of these people, it's great to be able to thank you in person today.
It looks like the credits of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like that. Anyway, this cool graphics is just showing about total downloads of projects. I would, of course, remind you that we removed IBM-sponsored projects from these graphs because they were overweighing community projects. This is not a popularity contest, but surely download counts are a metric for projects. And a couple of projects shine out here, and one of them is Help. Help is over 40,000 downloads with 19 releases, and this is by far the most popular community projects ever. And it's been developed by Uri, and Uri is here. If he's okay, we'd like to hear Uri's memories about this project. Uri?
Yeah, thank you, Sadar. Thank you all, and thanks for having me on the show. Wow, that's quite a big number. Yeah, there's a story behind Help, and I would like to share my story, my short story of Help. It all began 2 decades ago in 2002 when I worked in the automotive sector, and my former employer decided to work with SAP software, and there was a planning phase between start and introducing SAP for over 2 years. And during the 2 years, I kept asking, what will we do with all the issues and inquiries from the people working with SAP? Where do we track those issues? Do we have any system or whatever? Or do we use Excel or Word or Notepad or what have you? No surprise, there was no answer, no satisfying answer for me. And until shortly before the transition to SAP, we did not have a system. And we were 10 people in the IT department, and we were supposed to handle 3,000 SAP users at this time with no system at all, just paper and a pen and what have you. So in 2004, it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks before we started with SAP, I asked a question in the German Notes forum if anybody had a ready-to-use piece of software to track issues. It doesn't need to be very complicated, just the basic stuff to create a ticket and assign a ticket to a supporter and provide a solution and send mails back and forth with the user. But unfortunately, nobody could help. And on Good Friday in the year 2004, I sat down and put together the first draft version of help. It took me 2 days until Monday or so, Easter Monday, and on Easter, the Tuesday after Easter in 2004, I took my USB stick, went to the office early in the morning at 6 o'clock, as always, and installed the first version of help on our server. I think it was a version 5 or version 6. I can't remember exactly. And my colleagues came in and I informed them and said, okay, we have a system, we can work with it. I'll show you how to work with it and just give it a try and we will see how it goes. Okay, so as expected, it took not long before when SAP was launched on the very same day, that the first inquiries and questions and issues came in. And my colleagues and we entered all the questions into help. It was just collecting the questions, not really working on them, but just collect them and group them together and see where we have the same question and we could help quickly, and then discussing the question, providing an answer for it, and everything worked for us. So we were happy, my boss was happy, and users were happy, and happy users is the best you can have. And we had a few initial difficulties, but we could handle it. And so we worked a couple of weeks with the system, but then my boss came up to me and said, well, you know what? I have bought another help desk system. I said, what? Why? He said, well, listen, help is quite nice, but it's far away from professional. I said, okay, can you give me more details? He said, no, we should concentrate on the new system and you are the project leader for that system. Okay, I said, I'll do it. And a few weeks later, and we had the support of a couple of handful or two handful of consultants, and a lot of work, a lot of overwork, and working on Saturdays and Sundays to get this system set up and running. We were working with a new system, help desk system. It was not Notespace. I remember the name, but I won't tell you. And the system was really bad. Why was it bad? We were a little bit surprised that we just got text, but no screenshots, and we were used to receive screenshots from users, and it was always good to have the text and the screenshots so you can see what's going on. But when we used this new system, there were no screenshots. So I asked, where can we find the screenshots? Why don't you put it in? Then we found out that the screenshots are not shown to the supporter, but they are on the file system. And you had to write down the ticket number, then go into the file system, find the subfolder, and there you can find all the JPEGs and GIFs and what have you. It wasn't very fun to work with that. And I was very angry at this moment. Not to say I was pissed. This was in January 2005, and I decided to put it on OpenNTF. Take the whole project, put it on OpenNTF, so nobody in the company wants to have it. So it's my project, so I can do whatever I want to do with it. And I published it to OpenNTF. And it did not take long. The first download started, and they kept coming, as you could see. over the years. And so came the bug reports and feature requests. And a couple of weeks later, Thomas Schulte from Kulmbach in the south of Germany joined the project. And from this day on, we together developed help and added functionality. And it was also a good discussion in the German Notes forum. The discussion for help are the most read forum post in this forum. It's and viewed, of course. It has 230,000 views and 600 responses. So it was a huge success and still is. And in the following years, we developed and we put everything that IBM added to the product in terms of Lotus script and also Java to help. So there was rich text, and we just had it as a big sandbox. We used it as a big sandbox to add all this functionality. And another person was Tim Pister. He was 19 years old at this point. He joined the project, and he said, "Okay, we need a web front end." Said, "Okay, I'm not the web guy. You can do it. It's your project. It's your part." And he developed it. I think it was Dojo. He used Dojo for it, and he developed the first web front end. And also, I met Richard Hogan from, is it England, Great Britain? I'm not sure. I met him in Dublin at the conference, and he said, "Okay, I have some piece of Java to visualize data. I would like to see if it works with your project." So we added views and stuff that was needed, and we could visualize all the tickets and which tickets are late or which tickets were in time, and so on and so on. And around the year 2009, the management in our company changed. So we got a new CTO, and the CTO was had a Microsoft background, and we all were shocked. Would that mean we're now migrating away from Notes? And I had a long talk with him and a long conversation, and he asked me, "What are the advantages of Lotus Notes? Just tell me." It took me 4 hours or 5 hours to get out of his room again. So I had to talk and convince him. I had not really had to convince him. I think he was convinced in the first 10 minutes or so. I just told what we did with help and how it evolved and what we can do with Lotus Notes and all this stuff. It's rapid application development. And he said, "Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. What is the biggest concern you have in the department and here at your work?" I said, "I'm not very satisfied with the help desk system we are using. We have to use." He said, "Why?" I told him all the facts, and he said, "Okay. Do we have an alternative?" I said, "Yeah, I just told you help. This little pet project of mine. So yeah, I think it's better to use it here than the other system." He listened, and after a while, he asked me how long it would take to bring this back alive or to activate it. Well, I had to smile a bit. Help was still on our servers. I developed during work time. I can say it now. Yeah, I said, "Okay, give me 5 minutes." He said, "What?" Yeah, I said, "Give me 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so." So I went to my desk, and yeah, I sent him the database link. And I said, "Okay, you can now look inside." "Well, how quick this is," he said. It's amazing. Yeah. And 3 days later, he sent an email to all the employees and said, "Okay, we are now using help, which we developed in our own company, which we developed inside here, and we hope you have fun with it." So from that day on, we used help in the company, and it was a great success. We never used the old system again. And yeah, That's all the story so far. I left the company in 2012, and since that day, I have not worked on help any longer. And but I have seen it in the wild at a few other companies I worked for, BCC, for example. So when I joined BCC and took a look at the systems they are using, I saw help is in place, and I felt very comfortable.
That's a great story.
That's all. Thank you.
That's a fantastic story, Ulrich.
Do you know if your old company still uses Help and Domino?
I met an administrator. It's 5 or 6 years ago. They still were using Notes and Domino, and they still were using it the same way as I left it. So I installed all the servers, clustered servers on Linux and stuff like that, and they were still using it. Yeah, I think they still used help up to the last day. They migrated now to another software, which I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I think you know. I know what you mean.
It starts with an M, I think. I'm not sure.
Don't break it, Oliver.
Okay, yeah. I will jump into the next project I want to highlight because it's without any doubt, I think it would be the most important project in the OpenNTF's life because of what it means for OpenNTF. Because probably Bruce will speak about it in a moment. Maybe Vince is, if he's still here. I would like to ask them because this project is significant. OpenNTF needed a killer application, make the initial jump in the first days, and this project has created tons of features on top of mail database and some ideas we have seen in the official releases in time, of course, never referenced back. Anyway, Bruce, Vince.
Let Vince talk.
Oh, I never talk. I never talk. You know that. It's you.
Yeah.
You do all the talking for me.
Go ahead. No, you, Vince. You know, here I'll start and then I'll bring Vince in. So the mail template, right? The Notes mail template was, back in the day, kind of primitive. It didn't do a lot of things that Outlook did. I was an Outlook user at the time, working at Sharp, and I think, I probably turned to Anil, Vince, Nathan, a few other people, and I'm like, why don't we just make mail better? We have all of the code, the templates right there. So we did it. We added, I don't know how many features we added, but we just kept on going. And like Sardar said, IBM at the time, whoever it was, started to incorporate not all, just a few of the features, but it was that one, as I stated in one of my presentations, that killer application that helped put, OpenNTF on the radar screens of Notes and Domino developers around the world. So again, I was just more of a coordinator. I don't think I did much of the coding. You don't want to ever look at my code. But I know Vince, Anil, Michael, Rune, Alan helped out, and Neil Wainwright, names of yesteryear. So Vince, you did a lot of this work, right?
Yes, I did. It was it was strange times. I mean, everything we could think of, we put in. In the end, it was too much. That's for sure. No wonder they did not copy everything into the official mail template. But indeed, there's still some features that I saw added in, I think 9 or 10 that we already had in the 6th version. So that was the biggest challenge, to make the functionality work, even though the engine behind it was not suited for that. So every new version of the Domino engine had new secret formulas. So the first thing I did was get the newest template and run it on a lower version server, so I knew what new features they added just to use in the mail template, and that helped me as well. So it was kind of a dual thing. I helped them and they helped me. So yeah, I had a lot of requests over the years from companies from all over the world. So it was nice to see that it was heavily used everywhere. And yeah, that's about it. Not
Do
much
you have
more
a
to say.
favorite? Do you have a favorite feature you added, Vince?
The favorite feature. Well, I think the reply indicators. That's one of the first things we did. I think that was one of the biggest misses in the mail template. And other than that, all the flags and reminders, etc., that I put in, I personally really like that. You don't have to go to the calendar to create a reminder. You just do it right in the mail with 2 clicks of a button. So, but this was fun to work with everyone, and I had a great time.
Yeah, and I can't believe we put that cryptocurrency mining thing in there back in 2001.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, no, that was a great project because it pulled it was it pulled 11 of us, and one of them is a friend of mine. She's a graphics person, Kelly Callahan, but it pulled us all together on a common goal, which kind of we've never done in the Notes and Domino community, and it helps set precedent. So very blessed to have been part of that effort. So thanks,
Yeah.
Vince, for all and others for all you did for that. So.
And thank you both and other people. And that was, I mean, I was reading all the discussions, and that was a pro work. Let's continue. And okay, we said that this is not a popularity contest, and download counts is not the sole metric here. One of the metrics is the contributor persistence or number of releases. I mean, I put there on purpose the XSpace extension library because it was a sponsored project by IBM. It has a number of releases which are following the version upstreams. But another project here I would like to highlight. If you are a Java developer, you would know OpenNTF Domino API is a huge success. And we have seen 46 releases, and I know there are more as nightly builds. These are just snapshots put into OpenNTF, and 14K downloads. It is a modern wrapper for Domino Java API, and it started as a result of IBM's intention not to invest in the classical Java API anymore. So there was a great team of contributors, and on behalf of them, probably the only maintainer left from the team is Jesse Gallagher, still a board member. I want to ask him about ODA.
Yeah, so this was fun because I remember in the old Slack, or not Slack channel, the Skype channel that we used to have, where it was just talking about how limited it was, how we wish we could do for all loops, how we wished we could use different data types, all the complaints we'd had for years. And then a couple of us, so it was like certainly Nathan and Tim and then most of the names you see on here, we're talking, and then we realized like, well, they're just interfaces. Like we can implement those. We have Java, we can write classes, and so we realized that the way that it happens to work, like one of the blessings of the old Notes jar is that it is based on interfaces. So it's like, well, as long as you have something that will work with that, you can do whatever the heck you want after that point. You have a lot of leeway. So there was a flurry for a couple days where it was probably Nathan, I assume, created the GitHub repository, and we all started hacking away at it. So like add in the basics, add some Javadoc to it, which was never really existed in Jar, and then saying, once we had all that and that worked as a thing, then we could decide, okay, what do we want to do? We want new data types, so now we can set fields to something other than a vector if we want to. We want to, and then eventually, we added all sorts of things like that. And then eventually Nathan set out to do auto recycling. So he figured out how all the phantom references and weak references in Java work and got that stuff working. And that was glorious to see in action. And we're just spreading out all over the place. So doing documentation here, doing new interfaces here. What else can we do? And then it just grew and grew and grew, and then became, certainly for me, for a good long time, it's a backbone project of, no matter what else I'm doing, that's one of the foundational layers. And it was always weird, if I'm, writing a one-off agent or something, or back when I had client projects that used the old API, just having to deal with that and be like, oh, right, I can't use array lists. I have to pass it a vector. I can't use, et cetera, all sorts of things. Like I always have to worry about recycling more. I always have to worry about X, Y, or Z. And it just became that. And it was just also interesting, I think, as an OpenNTF project, because I can't say for sure, but as outside of the IBM ones, this is one of the larger active teams, I think. And I know for me, aside from like working with coworkers in small batches, this was the first like open source multi-person project I was working on, which is a different experience than just I have some code and I'm putting it on OpenNTF myself or putting it up on GitHub. Like having multiple branches, dealing with people messing up the line endings, and dealing with all the fun of Git and all that sort of thing. It was one of those experiences where it was like, this is an actual multi-person thing that a lot of people are working on and a lot of people are doing, and a lot of people have ideas about what should be in there, how things should be done, and that sort of thing. And it was great for that. And I think remains, obviously the team, the active team is smaller now. Like Serdar said, it's basically me updating it as needed. But still, it remains a good example of like, here's a collaborative project that happened on GitHub and OpenNTF and was a major part of that. And I definitely really enjoyed working on it, and I definitely enjoyed working on projects that used it and didn't have to use the classic Notes.jar directly anymore.
Jesse, we talked about other people working on it, working with other people in the collaborative environment. That was the first time where I actually had people go in and change my source. Working on that, and I'd go in and be like, why the hell did they change it? And damn it, it's better now. Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. It was a good experience. Sorry to jump in there, but
no, you did good. And the next project, we also picked out of every parameters. We also picked some favorite projects from the repository, and OpenLog is my and board's favorite, and I think logging must be one of the most demanded categories in OpenNTF history, because when I see the OpenNTF main bar discussion, everybody is asking for a logging solution, and log4s, log4ls, log4j, etc., every kind of solutions. And OpenLog was a successful one in this category. And moreover, and the most interesting story with OpenLog is still alive. Because Paul Withers adapted it into OpenNTF Domino API, and as a sole project of Xbase OpenLog logger, I also adapted into my xlogback project because it was providing a central logging database for me, which is not doable for text files, etc. So if Julian is here, I would like to hear his story.
Hey, Serdar. Hey, thank you very much. It's funny, you sound surprised that it is still alive. And I think no one is more surprised than me because that was, 2004. My gosh, that's a long time ago. And it's funny because on the email too, that was back when you had to have votes to have a project even be accepted on the website, which is something I had completely forgotten.
Yeah, so I guess that the story of OpenLog is really just that I got tired of having to write the same error logging code over and over and over. And I also just wanted some place where all of the stuff came together into one place, because at various companies I had to manage so many different databases that I wanted a kind of a central repository for the notifications and messages, so that I could wake up in the morning and go and get my coffee and look and see what horrible things had happened through the night. But in terms of putting it on OpenNTF, I had a blog at the time and I was actively publishing stuff on my website. But the advantage to doing stuff on OpenNTF, especially at the time, and first of all, my buddy Bruce was doing this OpenNTF thing, and I thought it was a good community effort, and I wanted to be part of that. But also, OpenNTF had just such a nice structure for putting out something that's kind of close to a product. It's a lot different putting out a database like this, where you have to kind of have active support and versioning and documentation. That's very different than just kind of saying, hey, here's some cool code, go and take it and do stuff with it. So OpenNTF ended up being really the right place to put a project like this, because it did have discussion boards, and it had versioning, and it had Bruce out there pushing the OpenNTF message and doing all sorts of promotion and things like that. So OpenNTF ended up being really a better place to put something like this than even my own website. And really, once Peter Tanner came along and legitimized the open source structure of all the products on, or projects on the site, I think that was another huge step, because back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was kind of a wild west in terms of putting code on the internet and using other people's code, and people didn't think a lot about licensing or what the licensing meant, or what the implications were for either using or not using it. And I remember Peter Tanner coming along and saying, hey, we need to make sure that the licenses all line up properly, and get the signatures and get the appropriate structure around all of that stuff. And that was a huge deal too, because that allowed large companies to be able to use these products or projects properly, and people didn't have any kind of fear of using the products or projects on the site anymore. So I do want to make a shout out to that, because I don't know if that's going to be part of the discussion or not, but that was a big deal. Otherwise, not much else to say. I mean, I'll try to keep it short here. I think I ended up putting like maybe 7 products or projects out on OpenNTF, and this was by far the one that I got the most questions on and people asked me about, and so I'm proud to have done it. I guess maybe there was 8 projects, if Bruce, if we count taking notes as a project. I'm not sure, because that was hosted by OpenNTF, wasn't it? Anyway.
Actually, the database is still on the server. All of those podcasts are still on the OpenNTF server.
No, just not the podcast. It's just the list of podcasts. Podcasts are hosted by Bruce's server, I guess.
Julian's server. Yeah.
Julian's server.
Yeah.
Okay. If you, I would like to take them into OpenNTF server if you decide someday not to host them, because they are, they are very valuable resources. I listened to a couple of them, including the OpenLog one, and they are fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Serdar.
Yeah, thank you.
It is.
But
real quick note. I'm going to interrupt again, because that's what I do. Those podcasts that you guys used to do, that was my introduction to listening to podcasts. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yep.
Me too.
So I started listening to those, and then I was like, oh man, I'm hooked. But seriously, those were really good. I really dug them. They were fantastic. So thanks to both you guys.
Aw, thank you.
Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
I am listening right now about 20 podcasts or so, and it started with taking notes.
2005.
Maybe to just quickly interject, we've got more content than time because we're coming up to the bottom of the hour, which was our planned end time. We're going to keep going until our content is finished. And thanks to everyone for hanging out. And Sardar, keep going.
Okay, the next project I want to talk about is very important for myself because it was I was on the ship in this project, and I was very much on the ship because Niklas sent me an email in 2011, and he invited me into this project. He didn't share any details at the start, but anyway, this was also a team effort like OpenNTF Domino API because we were, Niklas has shared the slices into a team, everybody the function in the team, and we were going to replace CodeBin. And if Niklas is still here, I would like to hear the story from him because it was a very important project.
Oh, I wasn't prepared. Well, but yeah, this was a lot of fun. I mean, we had the code bin earlier, right? And there were many snippets, but it was a little bit hard to navigate. And we had seen other, similar solutions for other technologies. So our goal was to really provide something more modern. And, I like to combine multiple things by doing only one thing, or, achieving multiple purposes or goals. In this case, right, it was a win-win-win situation, right? Because we could all work together, we could learn from each other, we could together make it visible. We delivered something good for the community, and I think it was also kind of interesting how we implemented it technically. Similarly to collaboration today, which included some very tricky Java code. I remember that if we didn't want the click numbers as in Planet Lotus, right? Because we didn't want a popularity contest. And then we implemented the same tracking, but you wouldn't see that, and we wouldn't expose it to the UI and stuff like that, right? So we did very fancy things there. And Sedai, for collaboration today, something like the component that would go off and collect all the different block entries, right? This is, I think, as far as I remember, something you worked on. So lots of great technologies there, and again, a win-win situation, I think.
Yeah, that I totally agree. For both projects, I was going to highlight collaboration today next, and this is a good opportunity to mention that project because it's a curated news aggregator. In the time, I mean, Planet Lotus was okay, but people were going. If you are interested in news only professionally and they don't want to hear anything else, collaboration today was just about curation, and we wanted to put something different, something more easy to use, and responsive design was very new. Bruce Elgort has prepared the user interface models at the time. Niklas was managing the project. Frank van der Linden and Per Henrik came into the team at the time. And later, and I'd like to also thank Oliver Busse. Oliver is here. He will talk about it because he is the maintainer of the project for a couple of years now. And he is also organizing curators, and curators is the central part of the collaboration today's success. Without creators, there will be no news, and there will be no collaboration today. Oliver?
Yeah, thanks. First, I'm blown away by the presence of so many skilled people. And if I calculated correctly, we had over 1,000 years of Notes and Domino experience during the last hour or 90 minutes almost. So crazy. Thank you for all. Yeah, when I had my first contact with OpenNTF, I already was in the yellow bubble, so I know that from the beginning, and I was a user, only a user since one day in 2012 when I met Niklas at DINAG in Fulda in Germany, the German user group. We had a session together, a speed session kind of thing, and he introduced Collaboration Today as a new part of the OpenNTF family. That was very interesting. As you mentioned, the responsive design thing was quite new at the time. And in the next year, OpenNTF had that development contest, especially about X-Pages stuff. And I was lucky to be one of the finalists of that contest. I had the chance to join the webinar and stuff and introduce my project, which was the Bootstrap template. But that was not my first project on OpenNTF. But yeah, anyway, I was one of the winners. And later, I think it was some months only later, I joined a call. I was invited by Niklas and Bruce. And I joined a call. I think it was a board call as an external that day, an external guy, and they asked if I am interested in being a part of the team of curators for Collaboration Today, the somewhat kind of new offering of OpenNTF. And I said, yes, of course I am. So since then, quite a lot of things happened, and people changed, being responsible and not responsible anymore. But at the time, I think the main goal was to acquire curators. And since then, I did that more or less successfully. But I think now we have a great base of curators, and I definitely have to name one person that is around with us, which is Roberto Boccadoro from Italy, my close friend. Because we are on photos, we look like twins that were separated.
The twin of Oliver, right? That's what I am.
Yeah. So I must say that he's one of the busiest curators currently. We have a lot of more curators, which you can find out when you are clicking through the About pages, and you will see a lot of familiar names, more or less active during the past years. And at some point, I also, let's say, I had the joy of curating the code that is behind that website. So this code went to a lot of people's hands, and with all their own styles of programming and development, there are a few concepts built in that I still use in my daily job, which is caching, for example. And over the years, I added some new styling, and we learned how to change the categories and stuff. By the way, Bruce is one of the most active critics on Collaboration Today, or has been the most active one, telling me via Twitter or via email or whatever, telling me categories are empty, maybe are empty, and we should get rid of them. It's very hard to follow up content and content categories, to be honest, and being responsible for the code is not such a high burden. I like that, and I made it available on OpenNTF 2, of course, and it's an open source project. And if you want to run your own website, which works and looks like Collaboration Today, you can do that if you wish. And yeah, so the closing words from me are: I'm very grateful for all the people who joined the Collaboration Today curators family. I'm still happy that I don't have to do it on my own. I rarely do it on special occasions. But it is a website that still works, and as Zara already explains, its goal is to shrink or filter down to the real stuff that is regarded to Notes, Domino, digital solutions. It's not Notes and Domino only. It's more than that. It's Volt, it's Leap, it's Same Time, it's Nomad. You name the products HCL currently offers, and to reduce the noise that we usually got from Planet Lotus, which is still a great resource. And to be honest, I'm looking at Planet Lotus, and if Daniel Nashit publishes something that is of interest, then of course Roberto will kick in because he's an admin guy. And if I'm faster, I will do it, and or other people on the curators board. And so this is a living organism. So I'm happy to be part of it, and hopefully it stays for some years. Thanks.
Yeah, we offer. Thank you. And some of these snippets I want to talk about. OpenNTF is not just about projects, and there are these great snippets. They are simple, elegant. They helped hundreds and thousands of developers, probably the topmost, for instance, create calendar entry. If I remember correctly, that Uri's snippet has been copied around 2,400 times or so. And these are all over 1,500 barrier. And these are great as well. So we want to highlight those snippets before our other favorites. These favorites are the rest of the favorites, and there are great projects as well. Go CalSync, for instance. Before Traveler, there has been a huge problem synchronizing the Google Calendar and Notes Calendar, and this project has the most downloaded single release with over 20K. And Muneki Okawa is the developer, if I can pronounce correctly, but I'm Turkish, I can pronounce wrong. And Domino Team Mailbox is a single release, 15K downloads, the highest download per release. This is a huge success. Brian Green. We are still getting a huge demand for Domino Team Mailbox upgrade. Vacation Request, 33 releases, 17K downloads. Bob Brodsky. Command Line email client, I think the most geekiest project with 27 releases. Sami Salkuzo. Soapgate Q, 27 releases. These both projects have used almost all features of project interface. Matthias will. And I also want to Swiper. It's not there because of any metric, but just by because it's a favorite of board. Because without Swiper, no one can use source control, I guess. All X pages and Java developers are very grateful to Cameron Gregor if he is here. Anyway, that's all from me, and you can take it from here, Graham.
All right, we're getting close to the end of our content. Thanks everybody for hanging out. This feels like we should be all standing around talking, having a beer, because these are awesome stories. Okay, switching gears a little bit. Howard has been the driving force behind the webinars that we've been doing recently. Howard, why don't you tell us a little bit about the webinars?
Sure. I guess it seemed like there was a bit lacking in at the time in education, and there was a lot of expertise out there, but not a lot of good ways to get it, out there and spread around the community. So I suggested to the board, especially after, post-COVID or in the middle of COVID, that perhaps we, start a webinar series, and the board was quite amenable to that. And so we've been doing pretty good. We've had up to, I think, 300 people attend some of them. And we plan on continuing that next year. So I'm looking forward to getting some more, topics. We got a good list of potential topics that we're working on for next year. If anyone ever has any good ideas here, just let me know.
You know where to find us. Absolutely. Thank you. And the community guides was something that Roberto got in touch with me about a while back. Roberto, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Thanks, Graham. Yes, this is related to what Howard said. How to spread and make more available the expertise that we know, and how to match a need that I see is around in the community. I mean, I'm new to OpenNTF, as most of you know, but I'm pretty old in the Domino world. And over the years, we have seen more and more often the need for complete guides that help people install or configure or do whatever with a specific product. Because, and I'm trying to be kind here, the official documentation, especially in the IBM time, has been a bit questionable. Not bad, but for example, take connections. You have to install two completely different products, DB2 and WebSphere. And the connections installation guide says, head over to the WebSphere info center to install WebSphere. Well, no, not the way you do it. So internally in Lotus IBM, it's a long time that we've started writing full step-by-step complete guides for installing the connections, for example, or other products. So I put forward the idea to the board to have those guides, to have experts and people like Alice Lichtenberg and Daniel Nashed and Chris the Bishop, which are mentioned in the slide, write guide on a specific topic, and then put it on the OpenNTF website for everyone to go and grab it. Then later on, we had a chat because we have a good working relationship with HCL. In this case, the HCL Academy led by Luis Gregai, and he has a nice lady, Tiffany Amos, that's managing part of the academy, and she's in charge of the documentation. So we agreed that if there are any proposals that we receive for writing a guide, we will do it and then hand it over to the HCL Academy website, because we deemed it was stupid to have two different places where to find documentation. And so we decided that the best place to have a single one was the Academy website. So the guide project is still active, but we're still encouraging people to ask and write. But the place where we store it now is not on our website, but on the Academy website. Back to you, Graham.
Okay, we're getting close here. Nicholas, I'll get you to turn your camera on again, and we probably can power through these. But of course, contests were a big deal in terms of bringing new projects and new people into OpenNTF. Why don't you talk about that idea?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, contests were probably the most fun thing for me, and something I really wanted to do. I had tried to do that within IBM earlier when working on other projects, but it wasn't really possible, or at least it was very, very difficult. You need to think about how to do that legally, what the processes are, how to guarantee a fair judging, how to involve, judges from different companies and so forth. So it wasn't really possible to do it within IBM, but in OpenNTF it was possible. And we talked about it in the board, and pretty much everyone was all supportive, and we said, yeah, let's give it a try. Of course, we didn't know whether it would work out. It was, the first time we did something like that, but it did. We had 5 X Pages contests, and I think once a year or so, and they were really successful. Why? Well, because of a couple of things. So first of all, we received a lot of contributions, right? New projects or new releases. But maybe even more importantly, we got many new first-time contributors involved. So that's something I counted all the time, and that was, one of our main goals. We wanted to get the community, together. We wanted the community to grow, right? And I think that went very smoothly. Now, the other thing is that we managed to get sponsors involved. Other business partners who actually gave us $5,000 or so for each contest. And I remember, I think the first 3 contests were sponsored by We4IT, then Hitasoft, and then WebGate, if I could remember correctly. But please correct me if I'm
Correct.
wrong. Okay, good. And that, I'm not saying that people just submitted or participated because of the money. I don't think so. I think it was more about the fun and getting together with other people, getting visibility. But the money, I think, helped to some degree at least, right? So I'm very thankful for all the sponsors who actually, supported this effort. This was really huge. Now, one other story I want to share quickly on the not so positive side of things is there was actually a 6 contest about X Pages, not X Pages, but IBM connections. Okay, and this was together with the last X Pages contest. And we used the exact same approach, same awards and everything, the same processes. But guess what? We didn't get a single contribution. Not one. I mean, literally, not one. Okay, and that was really disappointing, obviously. But ironically, it was also very good because we didn't have to give out prizes. We didn't have to communicate about it. We didn't have to blog about it. We just decided not to ever talk about it ever again until today, I guess. So not many people asked. I don't remember anyone, right? And again, that was possible because there was not a single official contribution. I think we had some guidance or guidelines, like you had to send the IP manager an email or something, and we just never talked about it again. But other than that, I think these contests were brilliant, right? Because of all the reasons I just said. And again, also a lot of fun. We did the announcements at Lotusphere and, at several get-together events or user groups. It was really good. And what I've heard is very positive feedback from the community, especially also the winners, right? They partly found new jobs by contributing and by winning these contests. They were able to connect with other people. So a huge success with relative little effort, to be honest. But that's why it was so much fun to work on these. Bruce, did I forget anything? You were involved a lot, and Christian, you were involved at the last one. I know, not only as a sponsor but also as, I think, the winner, right? For the, I forgot what the app was called, but so if you want to add something.
Yeah, I gave Graham all of the graphical assets from the website that that we used, and I think they're on the OpenNTF Facebook page. But now I know what you were talking about, Nicholas, about that the fact that there were no submissions for the connections contest when we were chatting yesterday or the day before. So that was all yours, Nicholas. You came to OpenNTF and brought that whole contest thing on, and it was awesome.
Just to jump in there, I was counting the contest before preparing this content, and there was 5 winner announcements with 6 contest announcements, and I was going crazy with the thing, and I don't remember it because Nicholas has said that in the email, and we all deleted that from our brains. And I finally found the email and shared with the board. And I actually used the connection one, I guess, in the video I prepared. So there are both images. One is the X-Page Apaton for
I saw it in the video.
Apaton for connection, social business, just to say it. But the interesting thing is, just previous contest, we had a lot of contributions on connections, and this was there was a higher prize award. There was more easier to win because there was more prizes available, but never did that, and it was crucial.
Yeah, maybe we were just before the time, right? So too early.
Yeah, probably.
Having worked with Connection, Nicholas, hi, by the way, long time no see. I think that you jumped the gun a bit, because at the time there was not much to develop with Connection. It was not easy at all. There was nothing like the customizer. So it was really hard to develop something for Connection, and I'm not surprised that you got very few, if no.
No, I agree. I think it was just
If you do it
around the
now,
same
it
time.
would be different.
Yeah, I think it
You
was
were
just
ahead
about
of
the
your
time when
time.
we open sourced the social business toolkit, right? I mean,
Yep.
in a very, very early stage. So
It's still not easy to develop with connections.
Okay, pause, relax. Christian, I'm going to get you to unmute. I want to talk a little bit about the hackathon at Connect in 2017. I participated in that. That was before my time on the board. And I'll get you to talk about it quickly, but one quick memory that I have that I really enjoyed and appreciated was that there was an entire team in that hackathon from Japan, and they ended up coming in second place overall in the hackathon. And I thought it was just wonderful to have that group of people in the room when we never ever got to interact with those folks.
Yeah, that hackathon was quite amazing, and not because I had the chance to organize it, because of the participation of the people, because we did it short before the Connect, and people came over a little bit earlier to participate, and we had also a team from IBM there, and they have helped, they have judged, and it was so fun. And to see all people grouping together, they have built their own teams by themselves. And yes, the Japanese team, that was so amazing. And yeah, and one of the story I want to share here is we had also the visit of Inhi. She came and did also talk to each team and ask what they have built, and so. And that was for me very, let's say it this way, it was not only nice, it gave some kind of value back. If a general manager comes and takes time. And then Ini and I had time to have a short lunch together, and Alan Hamilton came in and he said, Invi, we have an issue. Christian is coming to this conference paying everything by himself. What can we do to found OpenNTF a little bit more? Because at this time we did not run out of money, but money was always a discussion there. And I had always to say to the board, hey, I'm a Swiss guy. We do not talk about money. We have the money. That was one of my running gags. But and that was the point where this idea was born, that OpenNTF will get enough money that we can travel around, that we can help people, that we can support, like this beer sponsoring. We have done a lot of time, and also as a kind of compensation that IBM took out the sponsoring of Peter Tanner, and that was at this contest where we did finalize the idea, and it started there. And afterwards, it was so funny. We did receive that amount of money that I have thrown in. Said, okay, that would be enough for maybe a year. And since then, I don't think we have not to talk about money because we have it now. But that only as a side story. But this contest, and they said Do you see we have this building in San Francisco? If you want to, you can have the whole building for a contest. But unfortunately, it didn't happen again. Too bad.
Well, we'll see what we can do in the future. Thanks, Christian.
For sure. So Graham, but you were on one of this group. What was your experience participating live in such a contest, not over the internet?
Yeah, I know Sidar was on one of the teams too. There were several other people that were here that were on those teams. Maybe somebody else that's still here. My experience was, well, my own personal approach. I got way too deep into the weeds and was thinking about kind of the perfect solution as opposed to, you know, a proof of concept, which was what everybody else on my team was more focused on. So we had fun. Kind of bashing around ideas in the morning and then trying to prove those ideas out and then pulling them all together. And I think that's what each team experienced. You know, kind of take a basic approach and then put together a solution for that. It was just awesome being able to sit in the same room with a whole bunch of different people from the community that I had either seen their presentations or, you know, read their blogs or whatever. And then to be able to just sit down and actually work with them and learn from each other, which was, I think that was the best experience out of it all.
Great.
Okay, that takes us to the end of our content. The last part was I was hoping to have a half an hour for a good chat, but here we are 23 minutes over. There's been people hanging on that haven't had the opportunity to share anything. I'm wondering if anybody's around that maybe wants to talk about a project that they used or some code that they used that they learned from or that helped them in their company. And we'll probably hang around for maybe another 5 minutes and then we'll wrap it up. But I'd love to hear from somebody who took advantage of a solution from OpenNTF and made it their own.
I think we also need to hear from you, our new chairman, Graham. Surprise attack.
Okay, hold on that. Bill, you've unmuted. Go ahead.
Hello. So the two that come to mind, the name is going to escape me on one of them, but Shirley Template was one that I used long ago and was just phenomenal. And the logo, of course, was you know, cute, but really made quick work of just going through and cleaning up at an investment bank, cleaning up a lot of stuff in their Domino environment. Really just love being able to go through and change and do everything I needed to do with that. So that that one I love. The OpenNTF you covered, Sidar did a great job on that. The mail experience, but I think that one just always stuck with me. And there's a few that I didn't know about that I saw on the slide. So well done. So I took some screenshots and I will go investigate and start using those. But so anyway, I just thought I would throw that out, and I will just take a moment and embellish. I haven't had a chance to speak with a good friend, Bruce. So it's nice to see you on the call, my friend. Thank you.
Right back at you, Bill. It's good to see your face and voice. And when you brought Shirley Template back up, that logo, the thing that really came to mind was the Show and Tell Thursday logo. I don't know how many people remember what Rocky and I did back then. That was, I don't know if we could use that same logo today. So
maybe not.
Yeah, good seeing you, Bill.
Likewise. Thanks, everybody. And nice job, Graham. Really enjoyed the content, what you and the team put together. I know it's a team effort. So really well done call.
Thanks, Bill. Corey, I'm going to call on you. You responded quite enthusiastically and very quickly when I asked if you'd like to come and join this. I wonder if you have a story of your experience with OpenNTF to share.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, the reason I responded enthusiastically is because it's OpenNTF, and I love OpenNTF, even though I'm no longer participating in it any longer. I had known Bruce for a while from Lotusphere, but I never really got involved in Notes OSS. So I came along after Notes OSS turned into OpenNTF.org, but I don't think it was much longer after that. And it was part of the steering committee at the time, which then eventually took it into being a nonprofit and where it's at today. And the fools that everyone is, they let me be the treasurer and play with all the money. And I had no idea what I was doing. But the reason I did all of this is because I was working in a big corporate environment for Department of Defense contractor, and we were not allowed to use open source software of any kind. It was a corporate requirement. You are not allowed to use open source software. So I had to write everything myself. I had a programming background. And so being on this team of admins, even though I was an admin myself, I was the only one with programming knowledge. So I was using OpenNTF as a way to learn more about how to do development with NTFs. And even though I couldn't technically use anything like, say, the mail template, I used all of that code as a learning experience. And it helped me so much in what I was doing while I was at that company. I was at that company for 17 years. And while I was there, it helped me so much. I felt like I had to give back in some way. And this opening came up on the steering committee. And I felt like I had to join because I had to do something to, like I said, to give back to the community, even though it was mostly in the background. You know, I kind of hang out in the background a lot. You know, a lot of you either have probably never met me or forgotten who I was, and that's fine. I do have a project or two up on OpenNTF. They never really took off much, but I never really tried to make them take off. Just, I don't know. I just wanted to get involved with the community. So I don't remember how long I was part of the steering committee and then eventually the board. 4 or 5 years, I think, before that job ended, and I had to move out of the note space at that point onto other things. But yeah, for me, it was really just a matter of being able to work with all of these great people, you know, Bruce and Nathan and Tim and John, and just like everybody who was involved, getting to meet David and Sadar and just all of you. It was a fantastic experience. And that was really what OpenNTF meant to me. It was mostly about the community and just giving back to it in some way. So that's my story.
Well said. Thank you. I think given that we're at the top of the hour, I'll segue from there right into the closing comments. But yeah, that's, you know, that echoes my experience. I think that echoes everybody's experience, right? It's always been for many people, you were kind of out there by yourself, and whether it was going to Lotusphere or going to OpenNTF, you knew there were other people who were doing the same thing as you, and you could share and learn with them. I'll echo what Christian said too, you know, following in the footsteps of Nathan and Bruce and Vince and Christian as chairman of OpenNTF. There are some big boots that I just pulled on, and I'm very grateful for all of the work that everybody's done that has led us to this point, and all of the people on the board who are very supportive and help out in many different ways to continue supporting the community. We're looking to keep this going, and I'm happy to try in some small way to keep the ball rolling. So thank you for everyone for participating today, and all of the hard work from everybody on the board that went to put in this session. Thanks for all the speakers, and again, recognizing everybody in the community that's made a contribution over the years. Thank you very much. Last word is that our next webinar is in January, and we have Daniel Nashid coming back to talk about the new backup feature that is in the Domino V12 server. So please join us then. Otherwise, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.